Hi, this is a Comfy video about using depth maps and a sort of lighting to control subject and general mood. So it's quite an advanced one, so I'm assuming you're all familiar with ComfyUI. I will put the workflow at the end, and it's fairly simple to use, but it's not exactly simple in construction. So I'll start with the interesting bit. So this is making the depth map. So what we have is two depth maps, one of our subject, which is the young lady here, and to the background where she is. And so I make a separate depth map of each one. Now a figure like this on white is going to make a terrible depth map, and it does, as you see there. So what I do is I use the segmenter to crop her out, and then I crop out just, you can vaguely see her there, then I crop out just the bit of the map that's her. So that's what this does here. Makes a mask, and it chops the bit out of the depth. And then we treat it just like any other image really, and put it in with a composite mask, using the segmenter's mask here, using that mask to drop her into the background. And I've notated it all here. You can adjust how bright or dark the depth maps are, because if she's too dark, she'll be too far back, and vice versa with this. So with this, you can adjust the levels. You see, I've altered the white level here. This one I haven't altered at all. She's unchanged. But if I wanted to change that, I could alter the black level and the white level. And then it's a very simple composite mask to put her in. She is scaled to fit here. So you see, scale figure. I have quite a few of these on here. You can get mixed up with which is which. But this is where you scale her, and it's rescale, so it doesn't change the proportions. If you want her fatter, you can use the resize, it's fine. So, and you can move the figure up and down on the composite mask. X and Y, you can move her left and right. She comes in top left. So 0 is always going to be top left. So X is the amount of movement right, Y is the amount of movement down from this corner. The other key factor to this is the lighting. I know there's been a lot of things about IC light, relighting. This is pre-lighting. So I want to make a noise field that sets the light and the mood and the colour of my image. And this is fairly simple. It looks complicated, but it's not really. So here we've created a shape, circle, and it's an ellipse rather, and it's 300 high, 200 across. And this follows across the top line, and here's the circle in the middle of that image there. Now you can move that within the bounds of that square, but not outside it. So you can use these numbers here to move it within those bounds. You don't really need to do that, but if you want to, you can. And then that is tinted, which gives us this coloured spotlight. And this has been composited on top, or cropped rather, and resized to be exactly the same size as our output image. So what we're making here is the image we're going to use for image to image, although it's just going to be shaped noise. The noise is made here. So we have a blank image, we add noise to it, then we resize it, and that makes this noise, this shape here. If you want to change the proportion of it, you do it here, constant number width, constant number height, and that'll adjust everything else because the numbers are all piped around. The final factor, and that the noise makes this rather nice noise patch here. Zoom in, see, that's a nice noise. But I also want that to go from light to dark. As you see, it goes from light to dark. And I do that by making a gradient, which is just from black to white. And once again, that's coloured, resized, and blended over the top. So you can adjust the brightness and darkness and everything else with, so you can adjust the brightness and darkness and everything else when you put it over the top. And then we have a final colour correct to make our noise field, which looks pretty unpromising. Here it is. But that's going to set the general lighting and mood of the whole image. I'll briefly mention the prompting, because this is slightly experimental. You don't need to use this. This is for a first generation for text to image. And the prompt is split into two halves. One are all the objects: the girl, smile, trench coat, standing, forest, trees, path, roots, shadows, morning, winter, and that's triggering the LoRa. And this is about what it's like. So it's tough, it's gnarled, this is the trees, I hope. It might be our girl, you never know. Ancient, spooky, dramatic lighting. So this is all of the descriptive stuff, and these are all the nouns and the verbs. Standing, forest, so it's all nouns and verbs there. And then they're put into a clip text encode, and these go to different parts of the clip encoder. The top one deals with subjects and nouns, and the bottom one deals with mood and atmosphere. I'm not completely convinced it makes a huge amount of difference, so you can use the standard prompt here if you want. Here's the standard prompt. And then our depth map is fed completely standard into a control net, and I've just used the default. So we've got a control LoRa, depth rank 256, and I have left this all at the default. It seems to work fine, so I haven't had any need to change it. And here's our process, which has almost nothing of any interest in it. It's a standard image to image. The only interesting thing is that the denoise is very high. The lighting, this lighting method, which is making, so this is the shape that's going to the image to image, you see here. So to change that field of noise into something, it needs quite a high denoise. I use between 75 and 90. You'll still get a response to the image you're putting, to the noise field you're putting in. Other than that, everything's pretty standard. We've got a turbo running, 2 LoRa's, one for the lighting, one for the arty stuff, and this is our first generation. And as you see, I'll just bring it up so we put them together. And as you can see, it's had quite an effect. I have found by doing it that this wants to be more muted than you expect. You don't really want this too bright or too vibrant. It'll increase the colour, and the contrast will increase as it goes through the sampler. And the brightness and colour and everything are controlled here with the colour correct. So you have quite fine control, and you can do these. Only take 40 seconds, 50 seconds to do, so you can go through a few seeds to find a good one. So I like this one because it has a real spooky, going into the spooky wood feel. And you'll also note that we go over here, although it's turned around, the pose is very good. It just happened to turn around, and I rather liked it on one seed. On the other seeds, she was facing us. And then this can have a slight tonal problems, so I put in a colour correct in between this, in between the two generators. So this just gives it a little lift. And it would be quite hard to prompt for a light effect like that. Well, not with any control. I'm doing this, by the way, because I find image to image for this mood sort of thing rather too constraining. So you're almost losing the advantage of using an AI generator, because it's not got enough leeway to make stuff up. And this way, you can actually control the amount of leeway it's got. By altering the control net here, you could reduce the inference of it and get more variations. So you can sort of dynamically control how much control you're having. And then that's sent into a simple refiner. Nothing clever about it at all. The only difference is that I'm not using the split prompt. I joined the prompt, two parts of the prompt up into one. You do not need to use the split prompt for the refining stages. In fact, it's best not to. So that has almost nothing of note. It's denoised at 45, and we're going up 1.5 times. Each time you refine, you want to go up in size. And so that's our refined image, which is one step better. And then the same thing happens again, essentially, with a slightly lower denoise, 45 to 35 here. Slight colour correct, very slight. I just cooled it a little bit and slightly increased the contrast. And that goes again 1.5 times up, which brings us this image, which is, we're starting to get nice details now. You see her hair, little rim light on her hair and the grass and so on. But notice we've kept the mood. If you go too high a denoise for these stages, you could lose that. And then after that, because all the forest really is done, so it's only she needs a bit of a bit more detail in her, and it's tending to show the side of her face, which I rather like, as if she's hesitating and thinking of turning back. So I quite like that. So the next thing to do is to refine the figure, because ComfyUI, all AIs are pretty poor at figures this size. So I need to cut the figure out, which I do here. I crop. Here's the number, crop X, crop Y, and they go into these number boxes. That's for a reason. That's the crop size. Alter that depending on how big your figure is. So if it was a bigger figure, you go up to 1024, etc. And then you alter these numbers to crop her out. You see you've just cropped her out into a 1536 square, which we then put through and refine. Another simple refining step, 35. Sometimes you'll need to do a separate prompt if they're sort of big things that are out of frame now and mentioned a lot. You need to take them out of the prompt, so you need a separate prompt. But in this case, we've got everything in the prompt in this little square, so I can leave that as it is. And then when that is rendered, we'll just have a quick close-up of that. So you see now we've got really nice hands, nice face, everything good on that. Nice details on the jacket and nice lighting. And then we need to put her back into the original image. So what we're doing here, right back here, we're taking this image, enlarging that twice with the upscale using model, with real, I can't pronounce it, ×2. Very simple upscaler. And that brings the background image, because the background image didn't need refining really, only. And then what you do is you literally paint in the bits of her you want using Mask Editor here, because the images are so alike. You don't need to be very accurate. Not in this case. Sometimes you do. You might, for example, if the rest of the figure is okay, just put the face in, for example. And when you run that, the numbers from the crop are piped across here, so they'll automatically put her back in the right place. And this should mention this, I suppose. This decides how soft your mask is, and the only number you're really interested in is this one, which decides how soft the edge of your mask is. But because you can see a little edge there, but I could come back and deal with that in Mask Editor very easily. A little bit around the hand, so I could come back and be accurate there and around here. So you could go back into Mask Editor, and this happens immediately because you don't need to regenerate. And I think that's about covers it. I didn't mention this is for turning off all the groups, and when I start this, I turn off all these and just work on the depth pre here. So you can now work on this to get this image ready without generating anything, and that will happen pretty much instantly. Then once I've done that, I get my light sorted. So once you've done that, you can turn on your light, and you can work on that separately as well until you've got a likely patch of noise. There's a few more things to mention here. You can rotate this gradient. If you wanted, you could put more RGB colours in here to make the gradient more interesting if you wanted. For example, I could make it, I could perhaps demonstrate that. So if I made that, these are RGB values. So the way you do it, halfway is 50. So we want to be a bit, we'll leave it at 50. Colon. And if we wanted it halfway, we could put 255, comma, 255, comma, 255, and there you see our gradient has changed. So if we want to have a different colour, and that has quite a subtle influence on that, and will make a different result. And you can put as many colours as you want in here. So I could have a colour in here. That's red, which has made it more red. So you can alter that however you want. Okay, well I hope that was clear and interesting. I'll put this workflow and some examples into the words below the video. Okay, thanks for watching. I hope that was useful and interesting.